2011, the Supreme Court sitting at Mengo in the case of Kizza Besigye against the Electoral Commission and Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in the presidential petition made the following declaration. The court held that there was non-compliance with the provisions of the Constitution, Presidential Elections Act and the Electoral Commission Act. Disenfranchisement of voters by deleting their names from the voters register or denying them the right to vote. But that it was not proved to the satisfaction of the court that the failure to comply with the provisions and principles as found on the first and second issues affected the results of the presidential election in a substantial manner. That is the word there. Case of 2011 Supreme Court ruling, we now take the opportunity to speak to the president of the Uganda Law Society Council, Bernard Owundo, to understand when the evidence should be substantial and satisfactory. That's the word. I guess I'm also allowed to say learned friend. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. What does court consider substantial evidence?
Thank you, Samson, and thank you for hosting me this evening. I think we need to go back to three decisions. There is the 2001 decision, which is Dr. Kizza Besigye versus Museveni and the Electoral Commission. And you also have the 2006 decision and the decision in Amama Mbabazi versus President Museveni and the Electoral Commission. I think it stems from the provisions of the law, and you have what we call the Presidential Elections Act, specifically Section 59(6) of the Presidential Elections Act, that clearly provides that the Supreme Court can annul an election in three instances. But today I think we are focusing on the first instance, which is that you must prove that there was non-compliance with the provisions of the Act, and secondly, you must prove that while there was non-compliance, that compliance affected the results in a substantial manner. Now, that question of substantiality will continue to be an area of intellectual controversy, and you can see from the judgments in the decision in 2001, that decision, three judges thought that the election, despite the non-compliance, it did not affect the elections in a substantial manner, while two judges thought that there was actually effect that affected the results in a substantial manner. In 2006, you again have, on a panel of 7 judges, you have 4 who think that the election, despite the non-compliance with the provisions of the election of the Presidential Elections Act, they did not affect the results in a substantial manner, and you then have 3. So you can see that's a very close call from the judges. So there are 2 issues in this perspective. One, the question of substantiality, is it a question of numbers? Okay, the ones who believe that it did not affect it in a substantial manner answer it in the form of numbers, in a qualitative manner, in other words. And the other ones on the other side of the panel answer it from a qualitative perspective. In other words, the ones who believe that it did not affect in a substantial manner argue that you do not have to see and you do not have to consider the numbers, as long as there was widespread bribery, there was widespread intimidation of voters, there was vote rigging, there was vote stuffing. That is enough for you to actually invalidate the election, and you do not need to look at the numbers, and therefore you answer the question of substantiality not from a numbers perspective. The other ones believe that the other judges who form the majority opinion believe that it is a numbers perspective, and that if elections are determined by numbers, why shouldn't we look at numbers and look at the margin to see whether the margin would have affected the results.